Good afternoon. This is Gail from Berger Sewing and Vacuum in Manassas, Virginia, and today I'm going to talk about the double cording feet. Now there's one that's a 7 to 8 millimeter cording foot, and the other one is a 4 to 6. So this one is for smaller cords, and this one is for bigger cords. And they come in very handy if you want to do big cording or welting and that sort of thing. First of all, they do come with this wonderful guide, and they talk about how you can do different things. One, from just doing cording. If you have some fancy cording, you can simply put it on your fabric. And of course, I don't have any nice cording, but you could just put your cording down on there if you have a nice cording, as they show here. They have some nice cording on there. And you could just couch it, and that's a great way to do it. Or you can actually make your piping. So they have for regular, so this is for couching, and then they have it for your piping, and then your double corded piping and welting trim. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, and how to use it for your zippers. So when you have your cording foot, you'd put your cording in and make sure that that cording fits into that foot. Let me pull that back a little bit. So it fits into that foot, and that way you can use this. And what you would do is you would put your cording, get my cording in here, put my foot on, get that foot on there. I don't want to have that mode. And what you would do is, trying not to make too much of a mess of everything, is you'd push your cording, and this is similar to your piping feet, a very similar way, and it's going to go into that one groove right there. So you have that big groove underneath, and you would just sew on down. I would push it in there, and I would find my foot pedal, and then you would just make sure that it's tucked in nice and tight. This is kind of a lumpy cord. You can see this cord gets lumpy and everything. Maybe getting a little bit nicer cording would also help. But then you would just sew down like this, and you can, so I push with my finger, push the cording like that. Okay, and my cording's getting kind of pushed up there. So, and you would just sew on down, and you do that. Now if you wanted to, I'm going to cut that and get that out of the way. So now I have, this would be just like your piping, so I'm going to cut it right there, right here, because we don't need much more than that. So this is similar how you do your piping, but what if I wanted to do a double piping? So then they talk about, you do this, and then they're using bias strip, I'm not using it, and then you're going to fold it in half, then you're going to add the second one, your second layer of cording, between the first two layers. So then I would put my second layer right up against that seam line, shove it up in there like that, and now I can run, let's see. So you add it between the layers of fabric, and I'm actually going to put it this way, and then, if I can do this right, and you can just put it right up against there, and so your second one, let's come down here, and I can sew my second row, and you can see how I did it on this one. Then I just pulled my loop around, and then I sewed my second row, and you can make sure that you now have your double cording like that. So you would do it like that, and because just make sure you're following your little instructions where they say add the second cord between the layers of fabric, move it to the other groove, and then you stitch on there. Okay, now if you're doing the welting, on the other hand, the welting's a little bit different, because this is you're going to trim this away, and you're going to put it on a chair. Let me show you. So they have the instructions for that, and they show you how you do your welting, and you're going to put your welting along the sides of the chair. Of course, this would be, you'd be using it with a bias strip. So you're going to make sure that your strips are thick enough, wide enough to go over all of this, because this one, what you're going to do is you actually fold it the opposite way, and you have it like this, And so I'll be folding it, and then I'm going to put it in there and sew it. Where you're flipping it over, you can see that what I did is I sewed it in there, and then I flipped it over this whole, actually I take that back, I flipped the whole piece over. So you take that whole piece, bring it over like this, and then you're going to re-sew down where you sewed before. And putting it underneath there is kind of tricky because it's so thick. So now I have this in here. I put the whole piece flipped over like that, and now I'm going to sew. If my thread hadn't come unthreaded, I don't know where my thread went, but anyway, you get the idea. So then I would sew all the way down here like that, and if you had thread in your machine, then it would come out looking like this, and you would just trim that away. Or if you wanted to sew it in, you'd leave that in there and you could sew it, or you could trim it away, and then on your chair you just tack it in between the two different layers of cording. So those are your cording feet. Another thing that you can do, which is nice, which I've seen people do, is this is a great way to put on your big heavy zippers in your home deck. Because if you notice, that big heavy zipper is going to fit right in that groove, and it'll go right through that groove. So this is a good way if you want to sew on a zipper. You'd have it like this, you'd put it in your groove, and you'd sew along it either side, whether you want to go on the right side or the left side, and I would just sew along it, sew along, then it would fold it, and it's out of the way. So sometimes, because your zipper feet, a lot of times your zipper foot is just running along the side of this, whereas when you use your cording feet, let me pull that off of there. I can pull that off of there. Your cording foot, your zipper's running into right inside that groove, and I can put it either side, and it's going to ride right inside that groove, and it's going to keep this foot nice and straight and keeping it exactly where you want it to be, because you can see how that rides right along that zipper. So this is another way you can use it, is to sew in a zipper, one of those big fat zippers. So have fun. Once again, we have our two different cording feet. The one that has the bigger grooves, the 7 to 8 millimeter. The other one has the 4 to 6 millimeter. And these are just wonderful feet. You never know when you're going to need them. You may not ever do big fat cording like this, but I'm sure you're going to use this to put in a zipper, either in a pillow or a purse or a tote bag or something like that, or even a jacket. This will work great, especially a jacket if it has some batting or something in it. Then this will work great because it can go through all those different layers with that deep groove that it has. So until next time, happy sewing.